What's up, guys? Welcome back to yet another riveting episode here on the Avion Awesome channel. Today I am doing something important, so it's probably going to be boring as shit to you, and that's battery maintenance. Okay, so here's the deal. You are going to be in situations a lot of the times where you're going to need to maintenance your batteries, whether that be on your vehicle, whether that be on the RV. You're going to have a lot of batteries, especially if you plan to do any level of boondocking and you want some semblance of a civilized life. When you're not tied to the grid, it's just a fact of life. You're going to need batteries. So in my particular situation, I have both a solar system that I have tied into the camper, and it's a completely separate system. So anything that I specifically want to either charge or be charged or run off my solar, I have to physically plug it into the outlets that I have supplied for myself that run directly to the solar system. But my camper has a house battery. It only has the one, and at this point I am pretty self-sufficient on the inside that I don't really need the house battery for much else than maybe a few 12-volt lights that I still run on the inside, and of course my power tongue jack. Now, one of the things that you're going to need to keep in mind is that you're going to need some distilled water if you're still using flooded lead-acid batteries. I'd be willing to guess that even at this stage of the game, probably over 50% of you are still using flooded lead-acid batteries because they're cheap, and also because you're cheap, or you've from a different generation and you think that flooded lead acid is still a good investment, which at this point in the game, obviously I'm talking in relative terms here. Flooded lead acid batteries are literally the worst investments you can make. They are cheap on the initial purchase price of the battery, but in the long term, you're literally losing money compared to just about every other option out there. Most notably, lithium batteries. So if you haven't upgraded to lithium batteries yet, yes, it sucks so bad to blow all that money on a battery, but it will pay dividends. Like, it's going to last like 10 times longer than any of your flooded lead acid batteries ever will. The batteries that I have, I could literally charge them all the way to the top and discharge them all the way to the bottom every single day, and they would still be roughly 80 to 85% capacity in 15 years. With these style batteries, this is just a cheapy $80, Rural King battery. It's a group size 31. It has 925 cold cranking amps. You would think, oh wow, this is a good battery. It's a really good battery. But it's a flooded lead acid battery, and so right now I'm getting ready to pull the covers off. The battery, I'm going to fill it up with some distilled water, which just basically means it is water that has been purified to the point that it has no particulate matter in it, like calcium, limestone, any contaminants in it whatsoever that will get stuck to the plates in here and eventually ruin the battery. And that's one of the biggest downsides of flooded lead acid batteries, because they're cheap. So because they're so cheap, most people don't take care of their batteries. They don't care. They could give 2 squirts of piss less about their batteries. They do just exactly what they have to in order to maybe keep it running for one more year. Most people don't take the batteries off their rig. They don't put it on a trickle charger when they put their RVs in storage for the season. They just don't do anything because it's cheap. And when something is that cheap, they just don't really care. Which is unfortunate, because the flooded lead acid batteries, they are old, they're a proven system, but because they are so fragile, they do in fact require the most maintenance. So if you're going to own them, try and make them last as long as you possibly can. One of the things that I like to do is I like to take the batteries off of the system completely, and I'll just give them a good cleaning. A lot of times I will use something like this Lynx battery cleaner, and I will just spray the terminal. Usually it ends up being my negative terminal that gets the most corroded. And I'll just sort of let that sit there and soak, and I'll make sure that it gets in all the grooves and cracks, because these battery terminals, they're directly into the battery. So if you get that corrosion up top, eventually it will find a way down into the battery, into the casing, and then start to corrode the plates that are on the inside, which eventually, given enough time and enough neglect, it's going to kill that battery too. And this is just what I got off on the first pass. All of this corrosion. And I mean, it looked really, really bad when I first sprayed it on there. And this is what collects. Not only on the terminal, but eventually, like I said, it will get down inside the battery and ultimately destroy that battery. So if you're going to actually invest, or should I say waste your money on flooded lead acid batteries, you probably want to do just a little bit extra in order to maintain these batteries. Make sure that they stay in the best possible condition that they can. Try to clean them up, clean them off. Make sure you check your water levels in here frequently. And then also take it off your rig and condition your batteries. Really condition your batteries. But you might be thinking to yourself, oh, but how do I maintain my batteries? Well, the first thing you want to do is just check your water levels on a regular basis. My recommendation is to check them once every 3 months or so. Because as your battery charges and then discharges, charges and then discharges, the fluid in your battery begins to evaporate. If you overcharge, if you boil your batteries, you'll lose the water that is down inside these wells. Each one of these wells has plates in them. And you are surrounding those plates with this water so that as the electrolytes move around inside the fluid that's inside the battery, the electrolytes can move around freely enough that they can find a place on the plates and then attach themselves to the plates. The plates are then connected to your terminals, which in turn release those electrons that have attached themselves to these plates up into the wires and then eventually out to, you know, your lights, your fans, whatever else it is that you might want. And as I said before, use distilled water. Distilled water is not that expensive, but for God's sakes, whatever you do, don't use tap water. It is so full of particulate matter, dissolved particulates in the water, that they are going to attach themselves to the plates in your battery and cause an untimely death, which is completely unnecessary. So unless you just like wasting money, just go buy a 90-cent gallon of distilled water. It's not that hard. And then with your distilled water, all you're going to do is you're just going to fill up each one of the wells down here until they are completely full to the top. And once you've got them all filled up, you should be good to go. And that's how much it took. It took probably, I'm going to say, 1/3 of a gallon to top off my batteries. That's how much water was missing out of this flooded lead acid battery that I had. So now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace my caps. And I am now going to recondition this battery. I'm going to work it really, really hard in order to make it as good as it possibly was at the time that I bought it. Now, just so you can see the difference, this is an AGM style battery that I had bought for my solar system. AGM stands for Absorbed Glass Mat. And there are no water reservoirs up on top of this battery. That means it is a sealed lead acid battery. This is a flooded lead acid battery because you have to flood it with fluid. This is a sealed. So that means that this has no water maintenance required. Everything that is going to happen happens on the inside and requires no intervention from you whatsoever. And this is what I plan to replace this with. So I'm going to be putting this as my house battery, and I'm going to be wiring this up so that it is the one that's running my lights and all that stuff. And this one I'm going to use as my main house battery and also use it with a small solar panel to keep it topped off and charged up. Just a quick reminder though, before you decide you're going to add a big thing of electricity and put it on this battery, dry off the terminals. No, I really felt like I had to say that because there's going to be someone inevitably out there that's going to leave the terminals wet. Their hands will still be wet from cleaning it off, and it'll arc over, and then, yeah, it'll happen. You watch and see. Okay, so this is a battery charger. It's a Schumacher. You can pick these up almost anywhere, and I believe this one is from Rural King. So basically all this does is it's a 75 amp, so this, it's a 6 and 12 volt battery. So if you are using flooded lead acid batteries in the 6 volt, like golf cart battery department, you'll be good. And this one also charges up 12 volt car style batteries, so you'll be good there. It also has 4 different settings. It has like trickle charge for the winter. It has a slow charge, a fast charge, which I believe is up to 8 amps, maybe 10 amps, I think. And then the engine down here, it's got an engine symbol. That's basically to start the car. This thing will only deliver that amount, that 75 amps, for just a few seconds. Otherwise, you're going to burn right through these wires. So it has a computer built in that tells it exactly how long it can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the terminals up now. I'm going to go ground so we can ground out any extra electricity. And then put on the positive. There we go. And now I'm just going to turn this on slow. So it's telling me right now that it's at 12.3 volts. And it's just going to start going to work. I've got it set to standard. And now it tells me the percentage. It's 73% charged. And this also has a separate setting over here, so you can do like standard, which would be like lead acid batteries, and then it's got a setting for AGM and gel. Unfortunately, it does not have a setting for lithium batteries, unfortunately. All right, so most of the hard work is now done. I'm going to leave this battery on the charger for however much time it needs in order to become full at 100%. Once it does that, I will turn it off for roughly a half hour, 45 minutes, maybe up to an hour, or I might just completely forget about it and start it back up again. But I will do this process and let it, once it shuts off, it'll slowly start to drift back down where it wants to be, naturally, based on its internal resistance. And then whenever it does, I'll come back out here and I'll flip the charger back on and let it charge back up to its, I think the top end of this charger is like 13.6, maybe it's 13.4 volts. And then when it gets up to that point, it'll drop back off and it'll slowly start to drift back down. I'll do that roughly 3 to 5 times, depending on how much time I have and how much effort I really want to put into it. And then I would consider that battery completely reconditioned. So right now the battery is sitting at 88%. I can hear the electricity going through the battery pretty hardcore right now. Once this thing reaches 100% here, this thing will just sort of gently maintain and then shut off. Then I could always turn it on trickle charge. If I think that I'm going to be gone for the weekend, I can just sort of keep this light charge going into it all weekend. Then when I come back, I can do the reconditioning process another 2 times or so. But that's essentially what I plan to do, is turn this thing on, let it charge up to 100%, it'll shut off, I'll let it drift down, turn it back on, let it drift back down. When it's full again, do that 3 to 5 times. And that will effectively be how to recondition a battery, a flooded lead acid battery. Now, like I said, I've got lithium batteries and AGM batteries, so this method isn't going to apply to everything. Lithium is pretty damn low maintenance. AGM batteries are pretty damn low maintenance. That's the whole reason to buy them. You don't get nearly as many charge cycles with AGM batteries as you do with lithium batteries. That's also the reason I have those. But AGMs are honestly really good for people that don't want to do this. They don't want to mess with filling up the water reservoirs anymore. So if that's a pain in the ass, or you just don't feel like doing it any longer, or you just don't want to carry the weight, lithium is definitely the way to go, in my personal opinion. Any of these options would not be in my possession right now, except for the lithium, had I known better at the time. But now that I do, my recommendation is to go full lithium on anything you possibly can. At any rate, guys, thanks so much for watching yet another riveting episode here on the Avion Awesome channel. I'm your host, Mark Puckett, and I'm going to see you guys again on the next one. Peace.